Well, guys, it's been a while. Haven't done one of these in a long time, so I might be a bit rusty. But today we're talking with Tristan, my buddy, fellow musician. And yeah, we're just gonna bullshit, talk about whatever we want. But I always feel like the best conversations are free flow. I may be all over the place. That's just
that's what I'm thinking is, what if we had something that was more focused?
Yeah.
Because like, for example, you brought up depression and taking antidepressants,
Mm-hmm.
and something I was wondering, do you even know, like, what are antidepressants? What do they do to your, like, chemicals of your brain that would affect your, like, desire to do stuff?
So from the videos I've watched and the things that I've read, I'm on an SSRI, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And apparently there's neurotransmitters, and it sends serotonin to one side. It receives that, and it sends that through something. And then basically it's a reuptake inhibitor, so it stops it from... it's complicated, but it allows it to build up more, and then that way more serotonin gets through. But it affects all of your brain, because it's kind of like a master key that just goes to everything. So you can't hone in on one specific, the happy neurotransmitter. Mm-hmm. And so I don't exactly know. But I know that I've went through periods of doing all the right things that they tell you to get out of depression, which is work out, have a regular sleep schedule, healthy diet, productivity, all those things. There was months where I was like on the ball, and I was like, I'm still fucking miserable. And it's what I have noticed, and this is something that I read about and watched videos about them talking about it being a side effect, is that your sense of overwhelming anxiety and depression will drastically decrease, but at least at the beginning, so will everything else. So your levels, your peaks for happiness, but also your valleys for depression, it's kind of like a compressor, you know?
Okay.
Compressor, yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. I was like, okay, super dynamic.
Compression, so that's what it's done. And I've had periods where I feel like, wow, I'm not hyper anxious, but I also don't feel as happy. The depression has gone away drastically. Like, there's a difference between...
Everything's a little bit more mild.
Yes, yeah. But that also stunts creative ability. So, I don't know. I just haven't had the internal push to be creative these past 3 weeks, which sucks. So that's like the whole Kanye thing. He's like, they put me on drugs, bro. Why are you trying to box me in and tell me I'm not a genius and all this shit? So I got off that shit. And I'm like, he sounds crazy, because he's got this line. I don't know if you heard it. I'm on Lexapro, and he's like, you ain't never seen nothing crazy than this when he offers Lexapro. And I was like,
I don't remember that one.
But I get it. So anyway, I don't know if there's a route you wanted to go.
No, I'm interested. So, do you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I'm kind of an open book about this stuff.
Okay, so you said you're feeling depressed, so you went to your doctor, got on antidepressants, and you're looking for a therapist.
Yeah.
And you said that you have tried the things that they say to do to like make you less depressed.
Yeah.
But you said you still feel...
Oh, yeah, severely. And I've been depressed my whole life. A lot of things. Growing up, toxic family, like alcohol abuse, drug abuse, all that stuff. Fights in the streets and all that stuff. And I moved probably 13 times by the time I was in 8th grade. So I feel like you flipped this.
It's like not very stability.
Zero stability. And the only stability I have now is stability that I've created for myself. And I've created a bit of stability for my family. That was the whole point of buying this house. But that lingers, and you have to do work to work past it. And so it also could very well be chemical. That's if you grew up in an environment that causes your brain to be a certain way, it's going to take some rewiring and undoing of modes of being. And so Yeah, and that's where I don't think you should do antidepressants without a therapist. And if you, yeah, and so, but the thing is about therapy is it's hard to find, especially if you're poor, a good therapist. The last therapist I had was a real weirdo. And so you're just going through therapist after therapist after therapist, and not only that, it's hard to find one because they have to be accepting new clients, and if they're accepting new clients, they have to accept your insurance. So it's a very narrow availability of therapists. And then after you get through those barriers, it's like, do I vibe with this person?
Right.
And so it's like there's 3 barriers of entry to find a therapist that works for you. And on top of that, this is my second antidepressant that I've been on, that I'm trying out. My cousin's been through 5, and they don't know how it's going to work on you and which one's right for you until you run through them.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, it's first try, you're good. But so it's a complicated mesh of shit that you have to work through to get to a stable spot. So it's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I've honestly considered therapy recently. And I think that therapy in my mind has always had this negative connotation. Like, oh, if you go to a therapist, like there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. In the recent years, I've been thinking, I feel like anybody can benefit from seeing a therapist.
I feel like almost all people would benefit from a good therapist. A bad therapist could mess you up worse. But
just having somebody to talk to, help you clear your mind.
Yeah. And nice somebody outside of, like, you can have the best friends in the world, but they're not subjective or objective. I mean, they're in your world. They have an interest in you.
Yeah. So they're always going to be on your side.
Yeah. And it's better to have somebody who has no affiliation with you, who sees things from a rational eagle-eye view to help you navigate things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's complicated. And I've been depressed. The lady was like, "And how long have you been depressed?" And I was like, "How long have I been alive?"
So you did see a therapist?
Then? No, I haven't yet. This was the intake lady.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm gonna give it maybe another month on these ones, and if the side effects level out and I'm able to feel that sense of happiness minus the overwhelming anxiety and depression, then, this'll that'd be nice. But until then, but so I've just been trying to push myself to get back in the creative space, and
and like you had mentioned, like it might be chemical, it might be life circumstances.
Yeah,
I'm not a licensed therapist, not a licensed doctor or anything, but so I don't know anything about the chemical side. I've heard about it, like the serotonin deficiency, stuff like that. And hopefully I don't get any heat from this, but I think that
nobody watches it.
A lot of people's depression might be heavily influenced by their life circumstances and their mindset.
Yes.
And I can see how for some people it's kind of a catch-22. Like they make the choice to stay inside and not meet new people.
Yes.
Which affects them because then they feel lonely, but they have like anxiety about to go meet people. So it's like a catch-22. Like they lose either way.
Do you know who Ari Shaffir is? He's a comedian. He's talked about antidepressants and severe depression. He's like, it always drove me nuts when people would say like, go out and exercise, you'll feel better. And he's like, how are you telling me what to do that? I don't even have enough energy to go walk to the fridge and grab something to eat. Yeah. I'm curled up in a ball, laying on my bed in the fetal position. Like, I can't do anything. And yeah, it's a catch-22 if you don't, so it's messy. But if you can, sometimes it does just take that kick to get you out of that rut, and then you can springboard off that.
That is something I agree with too, is like I know of people who are depressed, I guess, or like feel depressed. But I don't know if I'm really close enough to any of those people to be the person to make that, like, to help push them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For those
you don't
people,
seem,
I hope that...
to me, like a very depressed person, are you? You seem very balanced and well structured.
Yeah. I feel down a lot.
Yeah.
I will say when I was 7 was my first time of like considering suicide. I was 7 years old. My parents were fighting.
Yeah.
And I was in the kitchen. My dad had like left. My mom was upstairs in her room, and I went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife and like put it up to my throat.
Oof.
And then she started to come downstairs, so I put it away.
Yeah.
But that's something that has always kind of stuck with me. Like, holy crap.
Yeah. Are they still together, or did they?
Yeah. No, they're still together.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you classify that as.
Yeah.
But
well, I feel like it's only human for people to go through bouts of depression. It is maybe different for people where that doesn't go away, and that's where it's rough, because then you're feeling like that all the time. And some people have it way worse than me. So yeah, I don't know. Depression's a tricky thing, and I'm hoping to work past it, but yeah, I don't know. It's like I was talking to my brother, and he's like, "What are you so depressed about?" He's like, "You're doing well. You've built the studio space for yourself. You've got all this cool shit. You just bought a house. Your family's living with you now." He's like, "Things are good." And I was like, that is true, but it doesn't mean that the internal stuff doesn't or goes away,
Okay, so let me think of a way to go about this then. So, sounds like it maybe is expectations.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
Elon Musk has this quote where he said, "Happiness is reality minus expectation." And that's probably spot on.
Yeah. So, do you set goals, and do you have like long-term, like, have you ever heard of SMART goals?
No.
So SMART goals, it's an acronym, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-oriented.
I think we talked about this.
Maybe.
Possibly. We were writing down some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to do that because
Yeah.
whoever was
You
watching,
do that with clients or no, I think you said you did that with somebody.
with my team.
Oh, yeah.
But I've kind of done it since high school.
Yeah.
That's when I was introduced to like the SMART goal thing, and it's, I don't know, helped me with my career, and I apply it to kind of any aspect of my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically setting like a far out goal, like a lifetime goal. And that could be like the lifetime of a specific thing, not necessarily your life from birth to death, but the lifetime of
the goal.
Goal. So like the lifetime of your career. Like if you expect to retire at 65 or what, that's the average.
Yeah.
So if you have not started your career, but you want to do a specific thing, and the lifetime of it, it's going to end when you're 65, you're going to retire. So you're setting specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-oriented goals. So time-oriented, by the time you're 65, you want to do this specific thing. You want to have generated this gross income and accomplished these specific things.
And it has to be realistic. It can't be like, I want to be a billionaire by the time I'm 65. It can, I guess, technically, but
if that makes sense.
Is that grounded in reality?
Yeah. Right. I mean, if your goal is to do something that can generate billions of dollars, sure. If it's to work at McDonald's and to become a billionaire,
that's not really
you'd have to tweak
a likely
your goal.
path. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So realistic.
And having a hierarchy of goals and intermediate checkpoints in between those goals.
Yes. So it's like the lifetime, long term, which is like the intermediate, short term, and then like the daily. Yeah. The stepping stone, I think is what they call them. How my team at Keller Williams RMG does it, there's a book called The 12-Week Year. And basically, instead of making a year 365 days, it's 12 weeks, which is
1 week a month.
It's basically quarterly.
Yeah.
So 3 months of the year.
Yeah.
So you set your long-term goal at 3 actual years, 365. And then, so that's your lifetime. And then for the long-term goals, those are yearly, 12-week. So it's like, what do you want to accomplish this quarter of the year? Yeah. It kind of gets convoluted because we're using year to refer both to, but And then we do midterm goals within those 12-week year goals. So like, what am I going to accomplish this month to make this 12-week year goal happen? And then, so it's basically starting with the 3-year goal and working backwards from there.
Yeah.
Because that way you know what it is and what it needs to, what you need to do to get there.
Reverse engineering the goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then what do I need to do this week, this day?
Yeah.
And so I haven't actually started calendaring, which is the word for writing on a calendar.
Yeah.
My life until I started real estate. But I've always kind of done it mentally.
Yeah.
But I think that calendaring is super important, and it has helped make me successful.
Yeah.
Setting to-dos.
Yeah.
And like what I want to get done this week. So yeah, I guess overall what I'm trying to say is that setting goals and tasks based on lifetime, long-term, midterm, short-term, stepping stone, like daily goals.
Yeah.
I think that's super important.
It's motivational because you get the sense of accomplishment when you reach each stepping stone.
Yeah.
And then those stepping stones lead to the big checkpoints, which those accumulate to the long end.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to write these goals out.
Yeah.
That way you can physically look and say, holy crap, I've done all of this stuff. I checked all these things off. Because you've probably felt this way a lot too. Like, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I've done so much, but have not gone anywhere. And then, like you said, was it your brother?
Yeah.
He's like, why are you depressed? You bought a house. You have this podcasting. Like, you're doing all these things. And maybe you're just not seeing, like, holy crap. A year ago, I'd be really proud of myself. From finishing my garage that I was renting. To having this.
That's definitely true. That's a lot like, do you follow Jordan Peterson at all? Probably not.
Sounds familiar.
He's that guy, Beyond Order. He's got this program that he does, which essentially does that. It's called Future Authoring, and it basically asks you, what do you want in life, and what do you want for the near future and the far off future, and how can you get there, and then what does your life look like if you don't follow that? So like, what's the best possible outcome and the worst possible outcome? And he says you want those two things because in the middle you have something to run away from, which is the worst possible outcome. Like, let's say it's like homelessness, drug addiction, like you lose all your friends and family. That's the worst possible outcome. The best possible outcome is you have a tight friends and family community, you're successful career-wise and satisfied emotionally and financially, all that stuff. So you're running away from the bad and running towards the good. And basically you fill out an outline on how to get to those points and away from that point.
Similarly to basically
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of different like motivational speakers and stuff kind of have their own version of the same thing.
But it's useful. It's just shitty when it's packaged with some scam, you know, like when with some
so okay, can we continue on this? So
battery. Okay.
I like to start with the macro in everything and then get to the micro. So we talked about starting with the lifetime, getting to daily, and working backwards. I think that something that's important to make sure you're even working on the right lifetime goal of something is to start with something bigger than that. Which is a worldview.
That's really big term.
So I'm not a Christian anymore, but I used to be, and I would follow.
How long ago, by the way? I don't think we touched on that.
Well, I'll make it brief, but basically, I would say 2018. I still consider myself Christian. Middle of 2018, started to like seriously question it. Like, I don't know. And then by 2019, I consider myself an agnostic theist. And I think that's because I was afraid to let go of this idea that, to let go of this idea that
there's something out there.
I'm saying this wrong. I was afraid of the idea that there might not be something out there. And that if I die, like, this is it. So I clung to agnostic theism for a long time. And I also, something that a lot of Christians would say to me is, well, with how complex everything is in life, I mean, your brain, everything, and how could evolution be possible, and how can it just have come from nothing? All of this complexity, the fine-tuning of the universe, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy crap, you're right. There must be somebody out there that had created this. And that's what kept me as an agnostic theist from 2019 till, I don't know, I guess 2020.
Yeah.
Until one day I thought, if a God who is has no beginning and is...
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all powerful, all knowing, can do anything, super complex. I mean, complex enough to create our complexity.
To create the most complex thing we know, which is the universe. Yeah.
And he's more so than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't have an explanation or a beginning. So why couldn't the universe itself...
Yeah. It's circular. Yeah.
Why couldn't the universe itself be super complex without a beginning?
Yeah. Yeah.
And some people say, well, I mean, scientists think that the universe did have a beginning, and then my answer to that is, well, that I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be fair,
yeah.
But I mean, there's been theories of like multiverses, like how are universes created. And I think that at some point, regardless of what it is, whether there is a being responsible for creation or not, which is what I lean toward now. Yeah. I think that there's an irreducibly complex point that is eternal. Yeah. Whether it's just physical matter that has somehow generated life. Yeah. Or if it's some supernatural being that created everything, which that's another point. Supernatural, I mean, that's technically natural. It's just a different form of nature, right? So,
yes. Yeah.
I don't know. That's another thing.
There's two books that you might really be interested in reading. The first one is called, well, I'm trying to see which one I want to say first. There's one called A Universe from Nothing by Lawrence Krauss. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. It's something along those lines. And he's theoretical physicist. So it's nothing that's fact. It's theoretical. But he talks about how a universe could come from nothing given quantum physics. And, you know, quantum physics is like beyond any of our understanding. But it does talk about how a universe could permeate from either a multiverse where it blinks in from one universe into creating a new one. And it's a lot, but his lectures are really cool. And the other book is The Blind Watchmaker. And that's by Richard Dawkins. I don't know if you've listened to it.
Familiar.
Yeah, he's a biologist, but he talks about how...
Yeah, Stephen Hawking, Richard Dawkins.
Yeah. Richard Dawkins talks about how something so complex, the blind watchmaker, it's like if you would see a watch, you would assume that there was a watchmaker. Right. And that person had intent on creating such a complex device. And you think like... old school stopwatches with gears and complexity.
If you read help written in the sand on the beach, you'd think somebody wrote that.
Yeah. And whereas, so you see the human eye or whatever, and you see how could that evolve naturally? Well, you give it enough time, which is 13.5 billion years or whatever the universe is, and 4 billion years for the planet. It's like one small chain reaction, given enough time, could build such complexity that you would be, if you saw the endpoint, you'd be like, where the fuck did this come from? But you didn't see the billions of years that it took to get to that point. And so, and it's not intentional. It's biology and evolution working its course within the confines of the structure of reality. And so that's why it's the blind watchmaker, because the watchmaker is creating the watch, which i.e. evolution is creating organisms, but it's not doing it with any intention. Right. It's just natural causality. So they're really interesting books.
And can I say something about that?
Yeah.
So if a Christian was watching this, at least my parents or
my parents too.
They would say, well, you said it's random. How can it create such complexity? Wouldn't that be like, and they would reference this, I don't remember what it's from, but somebody said this. Wouldn't that be like a tornado going through a junkyard and
assembling a plane? Yeah.
You've heard that one too.
He goes through that in the book.
Yeah.
And it's not random. Evolution that's a misconception. It's random, random interactions in a non-random environment. And so like gene expression, I'm getting way out of my fucking depth, so I'm going to sound like a dumbass. But it's been probably 7 years since I've read this book, so it's going to be hard. But like gene expression and gene errors, which is essentially where we get evolution, that is seemingly random. But the selection part is non-random. I could be conflating some things. Again, I'm way out of my depth. But essentially...
It's like mathematical.
Yes, and an error can occur, a random error, a random mutation can occur that is either beneficial or non-beneficial to an organism. And if it is beneficial, that will extend the likelihood that they survive, which extends the likelihood that they reproduce.
Right.
And if that happens over and over again, then that evolutionary trait will propagate and become more and more pronounced, which is why I believe the eye, any type of eye, it's evolved in almost every different organism in some way or another, independently on opposite sides of the planet. And that's because the gene that allows for that is advantageous to pretty much anybody. And so he talks about what somebody asked him what he thinks aliens on another planet might be like. And he's like, well, you can't really say for certain, but you would think that because light is so prominent throughout the universe, it's a lot of light, that something like an eye, not exactly our eye, but something like an eye would exist in those beings. And maybe something like an ear to detect sound would be something. But maybe not. So it's complicated, but
it's all based around maths.
Yeah. Yes.
It's funny. Like you're talking about how a mutation might make something able to survive better than the others and then permeate. Yeah. It's like a mutation that makes it more able to survive the maths.
Yeah, definitely.
So we just need to figure out the maths.
Yeah. But it's my family is super Catholic, Catholic Christian, and I think like even talking to my dad, I like to show him photos from like James Webb Telescope or and I show him like each one of those bits of lights. It's not just a star, it's galaxies and clusters of galaxies. And in those galaxies, there's stars, planets, all these different, galactic bodies. And he's like, these aren't his words, but he essentially was like, holy shit, there's so much. And he's like, and his rationale is like, well, if there's a God, and the God is a God of those aliens too, if there are any.
Yeah.
And I think modern day Christians and Catholics and pretty much most religious people are getting hip with the science more and more and realizing the possibility of other lives and the possibility of evolution. And I think most of my family is on to evolution at this point. And they just see that as part of God's natural process that he laid out. So
yeah, and I will say, so we talked about how it's random mutations, random stuff, or you said it's not random, but
I think Dawkins says it's random mutations selected in a non-random environment or something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
But
it's not random. Yeah.
Over billions of years, and it somehow
culminates us.
Yeah. And so to the person who doesn't believe in that stuff, I'll say, do I think that is insane and makes no sense and I don't fully understand it? Yes.
Yeah.
I am not claiming to understand it. Yeah. I think that's where people get offended is they're like, you think you understand everything about how...
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think it's crazy. I just think it's most likely.
But what I think is more arrogant is to say, you know what happened. And also...
Yes.
It's how is it, like you said, the whole God is way more complex than the universe? How to something
It's
more
hypocritical.
complex?
It's hypocritical.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
And oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say. So I got out of the religion game.
Yeah.
But you probably weren't raised in like Catholic school or anything like that. Christian school.
Probably not as intense as you. I mean, I
Yeah.
went to church Sundays, and then I went to a youth group.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of where I started to blossom as a musician.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah,
But I don't remember what I was gonna say.
I think I went to Catholic school from 2nd grade to 12th grade, so my whole life, and so that means church twice a week, sometimes 3 times if it's a holiday, and Sunday school and all that shit, and staunch religious parents, and so it's. But I remember asking questions to the teachers like, well, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. If Adam and Eve, what time is it?
2:44. We're good.
Okay.
I just have to be out of here by like 4.
Yeah. I was like, if Adam and Eve were the only 2 people and they had kids, who did the kids have kids? And then he would just, all the teachers would just dance around this stuff.
Yes.
And not give rational answers. And as children are way smarter than people give them credit for, and they figure out the illogical consistency or the logical inconsistencies in these things. And yeah, and so I'm like, this shit doesn't add up. Yeah. And then I got into the whole wormhole of, all the scientists and atheists.
I remember, speaking of that, I remember what I was going to say is that we were talking about arrogance and claiming something. Like, I don't claim to know how we got here.
Yeah.
I've not even studied like the sciences around evolution a whole lot. I don't know a whole lot.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
If you look into it.
So I'm not claiming that. And you had mentioned that on the flip side, so like those type of people, evolutionists, whatever, can be really arrogant and kind of claim to know everything. And then on the other side, saying, oh, I know God did this.
Yeah.
That's also really arrogant.
Yeah.
And relating that to politics, Democrats and Republicans, they both claim to know exactly in something that I think that would improve civilization, improve America, is if people could just admit that they don't know something when they don't know something.
Yes.
And if they said, I think that this is likely the right answer.
Yeah.
That opens up a conversation.
Yeah.
And that allows them to be wrong and allows people to work together to try to find the absolute answer.
Yeah. But I 100% agree with that. The one thing I think where science differs from religion and politics, and there's definitely arrogance in the scientific realm, but people in like religion who are theists, they a lot of the times follow a dogma and a book that was written before we even knew that the earth wasn't the center of the universe. It was written forever ago. And it's unchanging. It's like, this is ordained by God. This is how everything works, and we are unmoving on that.
Yeah.
And whereas with science, it's like, this is the information we've gathered, and we're working off that. As soon as something changes, we'll adapt our views on it. And that openness to change and evolving, I think, is where science has most.
Yeah, and I think that approach is good. And I think what the religious people don't like is the ones who kind of use that approach but still claim to know things that they don't actually know.
Yes.
Like basically like
willful ignorance.
I can't remember the difference between hypothesis and theory, but basically,
well, a hypothesis is the jumping point into a theory. I'm pretty sure. So
a theory is like
a hypothesis is the general idea that needs to be tested, and once it's tested through multiple iterations, then it becomes a theory, and then if it's proven, it becomes
theory being something fact. That can't be
a theory is something that could be repeated,
empirically evidenceable, if that's a word.
Yeah.
But so there's 2 types of knowledge, a priori and a posteriori. It's Latin. A priori being prior to, meaning knowledge gained through theory, like math, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or by taking a collection of truths and making a hypothesis. That would be a priori. And then there's a posteriori, post. So priori being before, post being after. A priori knowledge is knowledge gained through experience.
Yeah. And I think, I feel like a hypothesis would be, like I said, a generalized idea. And then once it's tested through multiple iterations and proven, then it's an accepted theory. Like they don't say the fact of gravity, it's the theory of gravity, because it's been through multiple iterations tested time and time again, and it's proven to be true, but it's not something we can state as pure fact technically.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It's
so going all the way back.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we could touch on that more, but to our original topic about goals.
Yeah.
Which I think that we should keep doing podcasts, and because just based on this one, there's a lot of different ways we could go.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be cool to make specific episodes that we could title like, "This is what it's about."
Yes. Yeah.
Because this one, there would have to be like 10 different titles.
Yeah.
In it.
Well, the thing is that I've learned through this is the most fun I've had in a podcast in a long time. My favorite podcasts were always with one of my best friends, Alex, who helped me start the podcast, and he's very, very philosophical. But what we realized is that we would have topics that we want to touch on, but not necessarily be strict in that if we don't need to be.
Yeah.
And then after the fact, we think about what we went through, and then that's where the title comes from.
Yeah.
But but it
So
does help to
circle
have,
back.
Yeah, it helps to have guiding lines, and then if you want to veer from that, you can.
Yeah.
And then after that, see what you touched on, and then
I like
put that
that
in the title.
Yeah. So, were you gonna say something?
No.
I was gonna say, so without going into any more detail on that, which that should be different.
Yeah.
I mean, we could spend a whole podcast on that stuff.
Yeah.
To circle back to where I was going with worldview.
Yeah.
Because I went worldview and then agnosticism and then science.
Yeah.
So why I think you should start with a worldview when setting your goals is because that is kind of
influencing your
decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so worldview, I had studied Ravi Zacharias. I mentioned that. He's a Christian apologist. He's dead now, but he had this thing, and he was called the 5-4-3 method, I think. And though I don't subscribe to his theology or theological views, I still think that the method is good.
Yeah.
And it was basically the 5-4-3 method that he used in apologetics, and it was the 5 disciplines, which were metaphysics, epistemology, anthropology, theology, and ethics. And then within those 5 disciplines, asking 4 questions, which is what a worldview is. Anybody's worldview makes up these 4 questions. Origin, meaning, morality, and destiny. Origin meaning, where did we come from? Meaning, is there any objective meaning in life, or is it subjective? Morality, good versus bad. And then destiny, what happens when we die, if anything. And then there's 3 tests. So that's 5, 4, and then 3 tests for truth, and that logicians use. And it's empirical adequacy, which is basically a law of non-contradiction. Two contradicting statements can't both be true. Either one of them's true, the other's false, or they're both false.
Yeah.
So 3 tests for truth logicians use. Logical consistency, which is basically the law of non-contradiction. 2 contrary statements can't both be true. Either one's false, the other's true, or they're both false.
Yeah.
So logical consistency, empirical adequacy, that would be stuff that you can actually prove, like archaeology, artifacts, stuff like that. And then experiential relevance, basically, how do we experience things? It's through our senses. So is it actually experientially relevant? Can we actually experience this thing? So those are the 3 laws, tests for truth.
Yeah.
So 5 disciplines, 4
that is a lot
questions,
to
and
hold in your mind at once.
3 tests for truth. And so, I guess your worldview is determined by your answer to the 4 questions based on the 5 disciplines, and you test those disciplines using the 3 tests for truth. And so based on your worldview, that will kind of determine what you choose to set your lifetime goals.
It's the foundation of
it's the foundation
your decision making.
So I would start with that, then work backwards to setting goals and getting smaller.
But that scope is so broad. It's like that encapsulates like everything. Like, and that's, I always said my friend Alex has a strong, what is the word for it? I'm going to blank so hard. Like a set of moral values that he lives by, like a code that he lives by. And he's cultivated that very carefully through, reading and philosophy and studying all this stuff. And that is the foundation for all of his decision making in life. And that's something that I didn't really grow up having. And I'm, only trying to develop as I get older.
So starting there then, you had mentioned earlier you didn't have a lot of stability and that you still felt kind of depressed.
Yeah.
And I'm not a therapist. I'm not an expert.
No.
But we're, testing. What would you say your worldview is? What are your answers to the questions of origin, meaning, morality, and destiny?
When asking,
and we can just
origin,
do one.
Yeah, we'll do one at a time or one. Yeah, whatever you want to do. In terms of origin, what is that asking technically?
Origin,
like where am I
so
physically
that deals
from?
With metaphysics. So what would your answer be to
how did I come to exist?
How you came to exist?
Yeah. Well, we touched on the whole process of a universe springing from possibly nothing or ever existing, and then that's the Earth, and then natural evolution.
So evolution, basically.
Yeah. So evolution, and then,
and as far as the universe, you're not certain about how that came to be.
No, I don't think anybody can. I think
exactly, and I think a lot of people claim to know for certain.
Yeah,
I think that's where people go wrong.
Yeah,
but
I do think our ideas are maybe plausible, leaning more and more towards possibly being true as we go on. Like we first started with the Earth is the center of the universe, and then we started, the sun is the center of the universe, and we revolve around the sun, and then we realized, we only found out about galaxies within the last 100 years.
Huh.
We thought
unbelievable.
We thought our solar system was the entire universe, which is like that was what, a generation and a half ago.
Yeah,
that's crazy. And I think also this is more granular, but my parents coming from like a war-torn third world country and then coming here, that also informs who I am as a person or the origin story. That's the answer to that.
Okay, so basically you don't know, which I think is great that you're admitting that you don't know for certain the origin of the universe and stuff. But
you'd be a psycho if you did.
But you think it's plausible that it's evolution and that's how you are here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm 99.999% sure on the evolution part, because there's just too much evidence that supports it.
So that's origin, meaning. So meaning, is it objective, subjective, and this is like for your life?
Yeah, definitely subjective.
There's no outside force saying what the meaning of your life is.
No,
that would be like objective, close. I guess.
Yeah. No, I think we all have to. Have you read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
I'm
gonna go on a little bit of a tangent just to explain it. It's one of the best series of all time, and basically the gist of it is that these beings wanted to know the answer to life, the universe, and everything. That's what those three questions. And so they create this gigantic computer, and it's huge, and it takes thousands of years to process the answer, because it's like, well, I'll find the answer for you, but I have to basically calculate every
mathematical
every part of the universe to figure it out. And so they wait thousands of years, they go into hypersleep, they come out old, and they're like, because the computer finally woke back up and is like, I have the answer. It's really funny in the movie.
I've not seen the movie either. I should watch that. It sounds interesting.
Good. It's this woman voiced computer, and she's like, well, I have the answer. I don't think you're gonna like it though. And they're like, just tell us.
42?
Yeah, it's 42.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Yes, and they're like, 42. What the hell do you mean like that? And she's like, well, it would have helped if you had told me what the question was. Like what the real, because they want the answer to life, the universe, and everything. But what's the question to that answer? And so she designs and builds a computer to find the question to that answer. Because the answer is 42. But what is that 42 number answering the question to? And so she builds a whole computer, and that computer is planet-sized, and it turns out that computer is Earth. And then this alien race comes and destroys the Earth to make way for a freeway, a cosmic freeway. And right as it was about to finish the finding the question.
Thanks for ruining the movie for me.
But basically, his whole point behind that was the meaning of life is to keep searching for it, and there's no real answer, and the meaning is the journey essentially, and it's that. So yeah, that's my answer to that. I don't think there's any real concrete meaning. I think it's what you make of it and what you are looking for in life.
Yeah, so it's basically to be determined.
Yeah,
and that's what your whole life is.
Yeah. And I think my meaning in my life is centered around family, prosperity.
But as far as an objective thing, there isn't. Yeah.
No.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then morality, good versus bad. So, like ethics are really influenced by a culture. I mean, sacrificing babies and stuff, that might be okay in one culture, but not in another.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's where I think religion played a great role, and also there's many negative aspects to religion with the sacrificing people part.
Yeah.
But there's this guy Sam Harris. He's
I'm familiar.
Yeah.
Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins.
Yeah, and he's of the view that we should ground morality in science, and I don't necessarily. I love him. I like a lot of what he talks about, but I don't think that's necessarily true. And I think religion did a great job of forming communities and a moral structure.
I agree with
something
that.
To live your life on, but don't take everything as like immovable. There's, especially if your religion is telling you to sacrifice people on the temple mountaintop, and so take the good parts, remove the bad parts. But then that's why I think morality is subjective, and you just have to try hard to figure out what that is.
Yeah, and to expand on that, I think that's why I think it would be so cool. I mean, I would do it if I had the time and money, but if somebody formed, because I went to church, I loved youth group, I loved the community and stuff. Like when I left that, it's kind of lonely. Like there's not anything out there for atheists or whatever. So I was thinking a humanist church, basically a gathering place, where there was a motivational speaker, once a week, maybe Sundays. He just talked about goal setting, stuff like that, just as you and I work, which is what a lot of these churches do anyway. They
but they are biased in the sense that they're trying to rope you into something specific.
I would say humanist, secular. I would totally go to a place like that.
Well, my friend and Alex and I, again, who helped me start the podcast, we always wanted to start. That's what I think community centers are for. And I talked to. What's that?
I've never been to one. I'm at like the YMCA, but that's not really public.
Well, I actually just produced a podcast. I got hired by this company. I do their podcast. We do 4 episodes a month, and
that's awesome.
Yeah,
you said you were making money, so
finally, I'd like 1 client a month, which is like it's not a shit ton of money, but it's
pretty decent.
But it's pretty good,
like that,
and it
covers some bills.
That covers literally my whole mortgage payment, like my half of the mortgage payment. So now that I have that, like I never have to stress about having the mortgage payment now. But I got to speak with the CEO of the YMCA in the Northwest, and he was like, I'd love to possibly talk about doing some work in the future, blah, blah. And I'm like, he gave me his card and his email and all that stuff. It was cool.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I presented this idea that I've had for a community center type thing with the company that I produce for, and they loved it. And Unfortunately, they don't want to move forward with it.
They don't want to fund it.
They don't, yeah.
That's the problem, the money.
They said I should talk to the Spokane Public Library and Alan from the YMCA.
Have you looked into the things the public library has to offer?
That's where we record.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dude, the public library is awesome.
It's amazing. The only thing that it doesn't have, and this is what they asked me, and I knew they were going to ask me this, so I wrote it in the proposal beforehand. I was like, you may think that this sounds just like what the public library is doing. Because I told them we need, media production equipment, computers, all the different softwares, cameras, microphones. But I said the one thing that the library doesn't have necessarily is weekly classes, individuals who are passionate about the things they do. Like, let's say you were one of the teachers there, and it's self-contracted. So it's like if we find somebody who's really talented that knows how to do music production or video production, we bring those in. People pay, for the class weekly or have a subscription base. I told them I love the model of the YMCA for a few reasons, because it's affordable. They have sliding scale. So if you make a lot of money, you pay the full price. If you make little money, you pay nothing or, less than the full price. B, it's no one person, unless you're loaded, can afford all of the equipment that the Y has. Pools, treadmills, benches, all that stuff. And then, so it provides access to that. And then community. They have weekly classes like Zumba and coaches and stuff like that. But the thing that they don't have is exactly that format, but for the arts, for podcasting, for music production, for reading poem nights, like all that stuff. And I think we need something like that,
especially because everybody's like a producer, a home producer now.
And that's what I was saying. It's like everybody who's our age and younger are trying to make it a living.
They all have a 2i2 Scarlett Focusrite.
Yes. Yeah. That's everybody's first. Yes, yeah. And that's in its.
This is not sponsored by Focusrite.
Yeah. But it's like, I would have killed to have a place like the library when I was like 8, 10, whatever. It would have been a dream fucking come true. But now I have my own space. I don't necessarily need it as much. But the one thing they don't have is like teachers there that are showing you walking and classes. And I said, you could do weekly classes on a subscription base, like the Y. You pay $50 a month and you get access to all that stuff. You probably have to charge a little bit more, but access to weekly classes. And then you could record each class and post them online and charge a lesser fee. So it has broader access, not just locally, but anybody on the fucking planet could subscribe to it on like Patreon or whatever and have access to all those classes. And that benefits the community center itself. It benefits the teachers because they're getting paid to, and it's just people like me and you. Like I could teach a podcast on teach a lesson on how to produce a podcast. And then it benefits the people consuming it because they get to learn a skill that they've been wanting to learn.
And I mean, people probably, some people might pay for it, but they could even probably post those videos of the teaching for free. But like to be able to ask the teacher questions and participate.
Yes, that's the added bonus.
That's why you'd have to pay for it.
And you could do, Sam Harris has this model where he has this meditation app, and he goes, we charge a price for it, but if you can't afford it, and it's for his YouTube channel and all that stuff, he's like, we charge a fee for it, but if you can't afford it, just send us an email and we'll give it to you for free. And we grant 100% of the requests that we get. And he's like, you'd be surprised, we still have a large paid following. But this removes the barrier to entry for everybody. And also we have production costs, so we need to charge something to the people who find value in it. But we don't want to block you off from being able to access if you want to.
I downloaded this weight loss app, Noom. And they do something similar. Like you can pay 50 cents for a 7-day trial, or $18, or up to $18. And the people who pay the $18 pay for the people who, so it's like the same idea.
Yeah, exactly that. And I have a whole theory on housing and all that stuff that follows that method, but we won't get into that right now. But I think
we have so many podcasting ideas.
I know. If you're interested in doing it weekly, I would not be opposed to that. I've been looking for a new co-host, so I don't know.
No, I'd totally be down.
But I think that is something that I found a lot in church growing up, is that sense of community. And that's why I still go to church, not as much as my family would like, but I just love being with my family. And the church we go to, we've gone our whole lives. So I love all the people there.
Yeah.
I go through them. I do this stuff just for my grandma's sake.
Yeah. I mean, I close my eyes at the dinner table.
Yeah. And,
out of respect.
But I just, there's a sense of community that we don't necessarily have. And especially if you're not in college, or you're out of high school now, college and high school are big community-oriented places that you spent the last 18 to 25 years going to, and as an adult, you no longer have that, other than your job. But most people hate their jobs.
Yeah.
And so having a place where it's affordable, you can learn new skills, you look forward to seeing the people that are also interested in those
classes.
new skills. Yeah. I think
continuing education, I think, is super important.
Yes. And not only that, sorry to interrupt you, but
oh no, you're good.
Education from high school to college, all the way up to that, is yeah. What time?
Oh, we got plenty.
Oh, okay, cool. Education is all kind of stuffed down your throat. It's like, these are the things you need to learn in order to function society.
Yeah.
But self-directed education is a whole different beast. Mm-hmm. It's people who are actively choosing to pursue knowledge in a certain direction. It's so much more ingrained into their mind because they're interested and they're self-propelling that education. Yeah. And so, I think there's a big difference.
They're probably more receptive to it because of that.
Yeah. So that's why.
Okay, so taking all of that, what we just said, morality, and then destiny. So how do we get on this for morality? Good versus bad.
We were talking about good versus bad, which got us into church, and you said that's something you've
church was beneficial.
Since you've
community,
left the church.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's moralities. So what is your answer on morality then?
Subjective, and you find it on morality.
Yeah. Objective or subjective?
Definitely subjective. I don't think there's any concrete morality ingrained into the universe, but I do think there are collections of things that we've all as a society agreed, these are good, these are bad.
Yes.
You don't kill people.
Because I mean, if it's okay to kill, that's like fucking scary.
Yeah.
And I think that
but is it okay to kill Hitler? Like, see, that's where it's like,
it's a societal thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is another thing with Christian apologetics. Like, if you subscribe to that belief that morality is subjective,
what's to stop you from doing anything you want?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my answer to that, I used to agree, like, yeah, that's messed up. Like, we have to have a God to impose these things. Now I'm just like, that's why crazy things happen. And that's not why crazy things happen.
Yeah.
Let me back up. What was I going to say?
If there's not a morality ordained by God.
What's going to stop people from doing that? And one, I don't think anything does, even if there is. And I think the world is actually just fucking scary. Yeah. And I think it's just a truth that people have to face. Shitty stuff and fucked up stuff happens every day. And it's just reality. You just have to face it. And like you were saying, you don't think that there's morality ordained by a supreme being or something, but that we've all kind of agreed on a collective.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Yeah. Basically, golden rule: do to others what you'd want done to you.
So I heard somebody say an addendum to the golden rule, which I thought was on the ball. They said the golden rule is treat others how you'd want to be treated. I think it was Ricky Gervais. He's a comedian. I don't know if you know him, but he says that is a good starting point. But I think the better thing is treat others how they want to be treated.
Yeah.
Because I maybe want to be treated. Some people are into BDSM and they like their balls kicked and shit and like stepped on and degraded. That's how they want to be treated. I don't fucking want that. So if let's say I want that and I treat you like you want that, I think that's you're not going to be happy about that.
Yeah.
So treat others.
Dump on my chest.
Yes. So I think a modification to the golden rule would be treat others how they want to be treated. Because I think that's But and then what was is there one more? You said so it's
destiny. What do you think is going to happen after you die? if anything?
I'm gonna get eaten by worms.
Yeah, and so that
Unless I get enough money to freeze myself and be woken up, then yeah.
Yeah. So that question, and really all of the questions, they deal with the topic of dualism versus monism.
Mm-hmm.
Are you, as a person, the result of your brain and chemistry, biology,
And
or
environment.
our environment? Yeah, nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
Or are you a soul within a body, and maybe influenced by those things, but not determined by them? So I guess that's the difference between secularists, natural materialists, versus religious people who are dualistic and believe you have a soul and a body.
Yeah.
So what would you say?
I'm definitely more the former. I think we are. If I had your brain and your upbringing, I would be you. If that makes sense. There's this. I think it's all nature, your biology, and I'm not even gonna say decisions, because Sam Harris has this thing about how free will is an illusion, and it's a good illusion because we feel like we have free will, but he goes through this example of this man who went and either he killed a bunch of people or he was contemplating killing. I think he did kill some people. And then he killed himself, but he made sure to not hit his brain because he left a note. He said, "There's something that has changed in me in these last few months. I am not myself. I feel crazy. Please examine my brain." And because I know there's something severely wrong with me right now, which is what made him lead to those actions. And so they did examine his brain, and he had like a golf ball sized tumor on his brain affecting like aggression and impulse and all these things. And so Sam Harris says it's tumors all the way down. He says it's like, you may not have a tumor, but you may have had a dad who beat the shit out of you all your life. Yeah. You may have been homeless. It's all these things that are affecting your mind. And because it's affecting your mind, it affects your decision making. And so if you're somebody who grew up in an abusive household and then in and out of the streets, drug abuse around your family, if you had a clone of yourself, one person who lived that life and another version of you who lived like wealthy family,
basically
stable, loving
the
parents.
Nature of you, the same chemistry. Yes. But different nurture. Yes. Nature versus nurture, different environment.
Yeah. But also the brain also, if you have somebody who has a fucked up brain, which is not,
but the same environment, different
brains,
nature.
Yes.
Different nature, same nurture.
Yes.
You'll also be different.
But also those things, that's also out of your control. You didn't get to choose the brain you were given. Yeah. It's just how you evolved. And so I think nature and nurture is the only thing that I don't think there's a soul, and I think that's just.
And Stephen Hawking, he said once that his only freedom his only escape hatch is that he doesn't know what is predetermined based on nature and nurture. Mm-hmm. That I think that's it. Yeah. His only escape hatch is that he doesn't know what is predetermined, so he lives as though he's not. Yeah. I think that's really the only option we have.
Yeah. But I do think if you could go back to the very beginning of the universe, analyze every single point, like with the most advanced computer.
With the, what's that movie?
Oh, for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah, if you could analyze every single point, you probably could predict the future and
technically.
See the past.
Based on math.
Because it's all, what are those Rube Goldberg machine? You know what those are? There's essentially, when you see somebody roll a golf ball or a ping pong ball and then it hits dominoes and it goes down.
Yeah, like
and at the end of it,
chain reaction.
Yeah, at the end of it lands in a cup or something. Yeah. I think that's the universe. Like there was a starting point and that kicked off the position of that, and the position of the next pieces kicks off. So it's, I think, determinism. But I think that we're all just one. The universe is one giant Rube Goldberg machine.
I think people would, especially people who subscribe to a religion, is okay. What is that starting point? And how does eternal fit into that? If it's just always been.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. The
I don't
only the
either.
only possible thing I could think of is if this entire universe is just one of multi and they sprung from another. But then that's a whole.
Where did
nother
all of
thing.
those come from?
Well, yeah, it's never ended.
But
yeah,
you could turn that on those people too.
Yeah.
What's your explanation for God then?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes,
'cause it's
and
the same- it's
I've
the same
always
thing.
I've always liked this idea that a God didn't exist like eternally, but a godlike being could form naturally. Have you seen Watchmen? You never seen Watchmen?
Huh.
Oh my God! There's this I forget his name. I hate that I forgot his name. But essentially, this scientist goes into like he gets locked on accident into this nuclear reactor, and his atoms bind with the structure of the universe, and so he can teleport. He can make multiple versions of himself. He can create structures out of nothing. He's essentially a god. Yeah, he's a god ingrained within the universe.
Huh.
And every day that goes by, he just gets more and more and more intelligent and philosophical and feels less and less connected to humanity because they're essentially fucking chimps. And, you know, it wouldn't happen like that in real life necessarily, but let's say we create an AI system that's just exponentially learning and learning and learning.
Yeah.
And it creates a body for itself and then can manipulate reality at its whim. That would essentially, for all intents and purposes, be a god.
Yeah.
And so I think I don't think a god created the universe, but I think the universe could create a god.
Yeah, how the turns have tabled.
Yeah. No, I do think that's a real possibility, and I think if technology or biology advanced,
God doesn't
long
believe
enough-
that we exist.
yeah. I think that's possible. Like, are we not? Let's say the game Sims, right? You know that game? Yeah.
I've got 2 movies and 2 books to watch so far.
Yeah. Well,
I've played The Sims though.
okay. Sims is essentially a universe.
Yeah.
In it, those characters. Let's say it was super advanced, and those characters in there actually had consciousness. To them, we would be a god. We could turn the universe on and off.
Right.
We could change the
If they're AI,
parameters. Yeah, we could change the parameters. Who's to say we're not in a simulation? And there's some 8-year-old kid turning the lights on and off.
Well, dude, if you could like improve our lives, that'd be great.
Yeah, really though. Yeah, but so yeah, I think that was a good episode. We got 30 minutes. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
Well, I just wanted to see, based on your worldview that we talked about, what your goals are, 3-year or lifetime, whatever.
So the last time I actively set long-term goals and then intermediate goals to get to that point was buying it. Because I had planned 3 years before we finally bought it. I had said I'm going to give myself 2 years to buy this house. It took an extra year, but it happened by the fucking skin of our teeth. We should not have gotten approved for this place. We had the best loan up, whatever he was called. He just fucking did gymnastics to get us.
Who was it?
His name is Scott. He's over in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But he was the guy we went to the first time home buyer program for.
Okay.
And yeah, he's just a badass. He's so kind, so patient with us because we had a bunch of bullshit we had to clear out first, like documents wise and finances and credit. And he did it within 6 months, which he said a lot of people go within like a month or 2, they get approved and all that stuff. But it took us 6 months of like.
Did he do like a credit action plan and stuff?
Is that like repairing credit and stuff?
Yeah.
He just basically said, these are the things tripping up your credit. Fix those.
And like he set the priorities for them.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people need. I digress.
People need that in their life.
Yeah. Like people.
My credit is shit now, by the way. It's
okay.
not
but you
good
got
right
the house, so it's like,
yes.
who cares?
But also, I do care because I think there is something to be said about having the ability to get credit, and especially if you want to start a business or purchase another house or all that stuff. So
YMCA guy's like, yeah, so we got the approval to do that thing, but what's your credit score?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, really though. No, I one idea I had. This is another tangent, but this house, if I didn't have, 8 nieces and nephews, and 3 brothers and sisters, and my dad who needed to live here, I would turn this into a community center house. This would be the podcast room. There'd be a pottery room. There'd be cool. A bunch of stuff, and I would film classes, and so one thought I've had is in the future, if nobody wants to fund this goal, is I'm just going to rent a big house and have all of that. So that is one of my long-term goals.
Is that like actually one of your long-term goals?
It's been a goal that I've had. Or
just kind of an idea you're playing with?
No, it's a goal that I've had for probably 5-6 years, but I always knew that to get stability to do that, I couldn't be renting a house. I'd need to have my family in one spot, which there's issues with my family, so that's easier said than done. But I knew that I would never have real stability if I didn't have my own home, if I wasn't self-employed, which I'm working on. And so the next goal right now is to turn my media production endeavors into a full-time business, because I'm doing the landscaping and I'm self-employed that way. I'm doing fucking delivery bullshit, technically self-employed that way. But it's not
fulfilling. It's
not fulfilling doing lawns, and it's definitely not fulfilling doing delivery shit. So, and I told you I produced the podcast for that other company, and that was my first big monthly paycheck. And I'm like, well, if I can do this, and every time we go, people are asking for my cards. I was like, well, I can turn this into a full-fledged business if I just bust ass. So that would be the first next step. And then the step after that would be getting a building. But I like the idea of a house, and like a house this size, which is a pretty big house, and not renting like a commercial building, because I think there's more restrictions with that. And I like the idea of having multiple rooms, multiple bathrooms, and just being able to do whatever you want. And it feels more, if you have like a clubhouse,
you could do a lease to own.
Oh,
it's like renting, but then
is like rent to own. Is that similar to the same thing? Yeah, that would be really cool.
But anyway, clubhouse.
Yeah, well, it's. I think going to a building is cool, and especially if you have like a YMCA size building, that'd be ideal. But if it's just smaller, format, like a house like what I could do is go find a house, either rent it or lease to own, like you said, and live in that one, and then transition this house into that. But I think it would be a community center type thing is something me and my best friend
and me too, apparently.
Yeah.
So, well, dude, we're on the same page about so many things.
I know, it's uncanny. But I have. That's literally. I just did the proposal to the people who I produce for 3 weeks ago, maybe, and unfortunately it didn't go through. But it's something me and my friend we were actually considering figuring out how to go about doing it until he decided to leave me and move to Bellingham.
Oh, is that, what's his name?
Alex. I don't know if you...
The one you were talking about earlier, the philosophy?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
He's like the most intelligent and the most kind person I've ever met in my life. And very, very artistically talented.
I'd like to meet him.
Yeah.
If he hadn't moved to freaking Bellingham.
Well, we've been talking. He wants to start doing podcasts more, which is I'm going to be doing with OBS and Discord. So maybe I'll have you on, and we'll have him on the TV, and it'll be.
Or we could. I mean, we all have webcams. We could just do a virtual one.
Yes.
Because I have the setup too.
Yeah, that'd be great. I've been doing virtual gaming with my buddy. We've been streaming on Twitch. So he's a lot of times he comes here. Multiverses. It's just cheesy.
I've seen that.
It's silly.
But he comes here and
he'll come here, and I'll be on Xbox and he'll be on PC. Or if he lives in Idaho, so if he doesn't want to make the drive, he just puts on his camera at his house, and we use. Thank you for fucking telling me about OBS. It's the
so good,
dopest thing I have, and it's free. I use it literally every day now. It's everything I could ever want of a software like that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I digress. Long and short term goals for me after that giant tangent would be primarily being fully self-employed. I'm hoping in the next year that I can get that, because my
Doing
goal
what
is
exactly?
Production, whether it's music production, lessons, producing for podcasts.
Just something in that realm.
Well,
yeah.
because I know how to do all those things. I'm not as great at music production as you are, but I know how to do it, and I could teach it.
Also, I think you're great.
Oh, well, thank you. I could definitely teach it. So I need to create, which is what I was really working on before I started these antidepressants, and it killed all my fucking energy.
Motherfuckers.
But is a list of services that I could do. I could do very intro to drum lessons, because I'm not that great, but I could do drum lessons. I could do production lessons for music. I could do podcast and video production classes. And then, so those are just instructional aspects.
Yeah.
But I could also actually produce music for people. I could produce podcasts for people, which I'm doing now. And there's also tiers within those. So like if you want a video podcast with 3 cameras, that's one tier. If you want just audio, that's one tier of
like
payment.
Subscription.
Yeah. And so like this setup would cost a certain amount. I'd need another camera because I'm just using an iPhone now. But if you want one camera, that's a lot easier to produce than 3. And if you want just audio, that's a lot easier to produce. So if you can only afford a certain amount, then... And then Alex does graphic design, and he's over in Bellingham. But graphic design is something you can just send files back and forth to. So we're talking about partnering up with that. So I've already got customers for landscaping. So my goal for next year is
hopefully another tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we are doing that tomorrow. Yeah. I've got a line of customers tomorrow, and I'm ideally I'll double that customer load next year, because I'm keeping all these ones.
Yeah.
And finding new ones next year. And I'm just gonna hire somebody to do those. And I'll make less money. I'll make the same money because I'll have double the clients, but I would make less money than if I was doing it myself.
But you're
that frees up my time.
What's that called?
Contract?
No, when you're making money but you're not doing the work.
Oh, passive income? Yeah, it would kind of be passive income. So my goal is to at least double my clientele with landscaping, hire somebody to do that so I still have income, and then do production work full time.
Yeah.
So that's the short term. If I can successfully do that, then the next goal setting is to figure out how to start a community center. And whether that's small scale and doing it myself out of some building or a house, or if I'm awarded grants or find somebody to fund it or partner with. Because, So, yeah. That was a long string of words, but... Yeah.
I've got to pee really bad.
Yeah.
Honestly, for like the last 45 minutes.
You can tell me. We can take a break anytime. Yeah. Well, that was it, guys. We didn't really end on we didn't end properly, but that was the show. That was probably one of the most fun that I've done in a long time since Alex left. That was probably my favorite one, so... Thank you, Tristan.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and we'll see you guys next time.